Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mona's Rants. I am your host, Mona Sheikh. You guys, it has been a crazy busy day. I have been on Zoom calls since 9 a.m. this morning. Yes, every hour on the hour, there is a Zoom call. So I haven't had much time to fix my hair. So this is what it looks like when you're trying to cover up a bad hair day. Yay. But I think it also kind of looks cute with like the hat on. You do not want to see what's going on back there. You just don't. There is so much junk in my hair trunk right now that it's insane. However, it is Christmas week, and I know that a lot of people are dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. There are instances of suicide. I mean, these are really heavy-duty topics. And holidays are stressful as they already are. But now, with the pandemic, people suffering financially, people suffering emotionally, having their kids, not being able to see their relatives, not being able to fly over. I mean, there's just so much sadness that this holiday has. So I wanted to bring on a therapist, and not just any therapist, like an amazing therapist. She's a returning guest. She specializes in EMDR, and she's also a really good friend, and I love her to pieces. So here's my very talented therapist friend, Bianca. How are you?
Hi. Oh man, I'm feeling it, Mona. I'm hanging in there. Love the hat though.
Thanks. I was channeling my inner Bianca.
Yeah, totally. You got that boho look. I got my rock and roll sweatshirt on. I
Oh,
was
look at
gonna
that.
use my light, but I think I'm good without it.
No, you're shining from within, Bianca. You don't need no light.
I put on lipstick for this. I mean, this is a big deal.
I appreciate it so much. It looks like I showered, but I didn't. So thank you.
That's
dude, it is we're living in a crazy time. Oh, look at this. We are living in an insane time, and people are suffering from a lot of depression and anxiety. So I'm sure you have clients, Bianca, that people are calling in and just telling you and sharing with you some crazy shit. Like,
Yep.
What is the number one complaint that you're hearing from people?
Well, okay. I'm actually going to answer a different question, even though that's what you asked.
Okay.
Okay, so on Instagram, we do a campaign that's called #StillWorthy, and it's for people to post the things that they don't do. It's kind of to demystify the hustle culture, the doing everything culture. I will say it's pretty interesting to hear not only from clients live, but through the DMs that people send us of their still worthy submissions, that a lot of people are relieved that they don't have to travel. They don't have to spend time with family, because families are hard and challenging. So I just want to put out there's two sides to this coin, and that, for some folks, it feels less stressful. I know a lot of people have decided to not do gifts, and not do the whole gift exchange and spending money because people are struggling financially. But I find that, folks that are really struggling, particularly that have children, that's where, I think people are feeling a lot of, sadness, and, parents feeling guilt that they kind of can't create the magic of Christmas for their kids. But it's also making people get really creative in a lot of ways, because it's really not about the gifts. It's about, whatever you want it to be about. It's about, believing, and it's about being together, and it's about gathering and all that stuff. So that's the other side of the coin. But no, then there's a lot of people who, I got to tell you, there's a lot of anxiety about being together, as we've seen throughout this entire pandemic, of like, how do you set boundaries? How do you say, like, guys, we got to keep our masks on. We got to be outside. Or like, well, they said we were going to eat outside, but if it's too cold, then we're going to eat inside. And I don't feel comfortable with that. And we all have to get tests beforehand. I mean, there's a lot of that going on for people too.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about, like, look, I don't have kids. You don't have kids, at least kids not that I know of.
No, Lyle.
Yeah, me too. I have a fur baby, just like you. And I feel like, even for single people, right? Unless you're in a relationship or you're dating someone where you're just like, oh, I'm seeing this person and I'm comfortable because, they're COVID tested and I'm COVID tested or whatever. But I also feel like there is this level of sadness, like deep sadness. And maybe it's on a collective conscience part, where it's just like you're watching the news. You're like, all right, the vaccine's here. Great. Then you have the whole conversation about anti-vaxxers who are just like, I'm not going to get vaccinated, right? But seeing so much death and chaos and sadness. So even though like you wanna, if you're alone, I think it makes it even harder to deal with it, because you're just like, who do I have that can like hold my hand and tell me it's gonna be okay, right? Like when you're living alone, people like myself. I mean, what do you feel like being single? Being single has its perks, right? Now you have the freedom to do whatever. But are you hearing more from your single clients, or from your married people, or your client, people with kids?
Mhm.
Who sounds more depressed?
Okay, let me think about that. Jeez, I'm just thinking about it.
Who is more
I have to
anxiety
tell
and
you,
depression?
I don't think it's like I don't know if I can really make it a split because there's so many different variables in there. I think, like you said, there are risks and benefits to every choice that we make. And I think that, okay, so the holidays in general, every year I talk about the holidays because the holidays are traditionally difficult for people because there is so much focus on being together, family, being with loved ones, sharing, celebrating. And if you're a person who has difficulty with relationships, is depressed, is isolated, is maybe, single, or, whatever the story is, you don't have somewhere to go or people to be with, or maybe you have people to be with and you don't really feel connected to them, or you don't have that special relationship that you want, it exacerbates it for sure. I see this every year with the holidays. So there's definitely that. And then on top of it, I think more people are having to be alone. So on the one hand, I wonder if people are gaining more empathy for people that are alone on the regular because they're like, wow, well, I have to be alone right now because I can't, travel and see my family, or, I
Mm,
work in a certain environment that puts me at risk. I don't want to put other people at risk. So
yeah,
the hope is that, we're all, and I think that, COVID has increased compassion, at least from the people that I see and the communities that I'm a part of, for others,
yeah.
because for the first time, we're like, oh man, this is what it's like to not have freedoms to go out and to do things, or to feel alone, or to feel like you can't see your friends, or to feel like you can't travel, which is, the experience of a lot of people regularly. So, yeah, I mean, I think that there's the risks and I think there's the pros and cons to all of it. I don't know if any particular group seems like more sad, but I can sense, my friend, you feeling sad.
I am I have like this I've had very interesting things happen in the last 2-3 weeks that have just kind of exacerbated my kind of depression and my anxiety, just like stuff happening in my personal life, stuff happening with my family. And it's just like, not that I celebrate my holidays with my family every year. I don't. I think I don't remember the last time I celebrated the holidays with my family. I really don't. We don't really celebrate holidays together. Mainly because we also don't have that kind of relationship. I don't have that kind of relationship with my family. We're all just kind of busy doing our own thing.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, me personally, and I know a lot of other like single friends, and even who are just kind of in this place where I think the pandemic has really put this thing about mortality at the forefront for everyone. I feel,
Mhm.
unless you're a kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the sense of mortality, you're just like, wow, you could possibly get this horrible virus and die. So it's just like, well, I feel like it's shifted my priorities. It's shifted my focus. It's just like,
Totally.
for the longest time, I've just been like, career is everything. Just focus on career. For the past 10 years, I've just been like pounding the pavement, working my ass off, 100-hour weeks, like whatever it takes. But the pandemic not only has slowed me down, but it also put this thing in perspective. It's just like, wow, like I'm single, God forbid, I could possibly get this thing and die and just be by myself at home, and just,
Mhm.
have my dog could be eating my face. I don't know, because she needs to eat and survive,
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I guess my question is just like, are you hearing more and more from your patients about how their priorities are shifting too, where it's becoming
Totally.
more about personal relationships, quality relationships, versus I don't want to work
100%.
so much?
1000%. And I today was in the bathtub, which is where I do some of my best meditated and thinking, and
Love it.
I was answering for myself, like kind of like what went well, what could go better this year, that type of thing. And I realized that one of the greatest gifts of this year is the priority that I've put on my relationships, particularly with my family, because I live across the country from my entire family. So for me, it's been like the Zoom calls and the, text messaging and the getting, connecting and having an hour conversation with my mom, or being last night on a Zoom with my three sisters, karaokeing out of the blue, really. Yes. And I have found that that's been the same for the people that I talk with. Everybody, it seems like, has really been able to take this time, because think about it. Now it's like anytime you go out to do something, you could possibly expose yourself to right, COVID, which is potentially deadly. Okay, now I know that most people that get COVID don't die, but your mind is always assessing risk, because your mind is always like assessing your survival.
That's
So,
right.
A lot of this we've talked about, I think before, is this whole idea of decision fatigue, where it's like, do I really want to go get my eyebrows threaded? Like, kind of not urgent, but I'm kind of feeling like it could make me feel better about myself, but like, kind of, am I going to put myself at risk? Well, who am I going to see in the next 2 weeks? And it's like all of these decisions are requiring us to do this additional decision making. And it's the same thing, with oh my, what were we just talking about? I just lost it. The holidays.
Decision fatigue. We're talking about decision fatigue, and
we're talking about before that.
Before that, we were talking about how people's priorities have shifted.
Oh yeah. So that's an example of like, right, your priorities really shift, because you're like, there's a big risk to me doing this, so I'm only going to do the things that really matter to me. And so I think it's been kind of an amazing opportunity for us to do that. But I think also too, I always think of that. I don't know if it was Sex in the City or whatever, but living alone and choking is the scariest thing in the entire world.
It is.
Okay. It is
the
scariest thing in the entire world. It makes it literally, your life flashes before your eyes.
That's right.
And you're basically like, this is not sustainable. Like, this is a terrible idea. Nobody should live alone. Right. And the thing is, like, even if you lived with a partner, you could still be home alone and choke and die. But there's that experience that I think is really universal for people that are single, that if you were to get sick, and I have been single and very sick, and like really was like one of the worst colds and flus I ever had. And it was like, thank God I had friends that were willing to drop soup off, check in on me, this, that, and the other thing. But there is something, I think most of us regress a little bit when we're sick, and we all want our mommies. We all want our mommies when we're sick, and our significant others then sort of take on that role for us of comforting us, taking care of us, and this, that, and the other. And I think a lot of people are like, oh my God, there's a deeper meaning to this connection. Part of it is also having someone to take care of you, and you them.
Yep. I mean, not to sound cold, but when I get sick, I definitely don't ask for mommy, or if under any other circumstance. I'm just like, no thanks. I'm gonna pass on that.
But you want like a mommy figure that would be a good mommy figure, not your particular mommy, but like if you had a friend or a partner who could take care of you in that loving way.
Yeah, like a loving person, right? Whether it be a friend or a partner.
But that's not always the mommy. Yeah.
I see what you're saying about like that kind of comforting, role person. No, I've literally never asked for my mother. Like literally ever. I've never been like, I need my mommy. I'm just like, get her away from me. I'm just like, no. Even when I was sick, and my mom would be like, can I bring you this? And I'm just like,
no,
just stay away.
That's a challenging relationship. Yes,
please just don't. And it's interesting, right? I think for me, like another thing that's been happening is really kind of looking at so many, it's like when you're just going about your day and you're going about your life, you're just like, I got to do this, I got to do that. The pandemic has really put a pause, right? To be like, oh, now you got to sit with your thoughts. Or now you got to work on your shit that you've been like putting away all this time, right? And I don't care if you're single, you're married, in a relationship, divorced, whatever. I think everybody is going through this thing where they have to do this check-in with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And
Yep.
it's a complicated, difficult place.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is so synchronous. So I was just working on a newsletter, and I was thinking to myself, what can I give, the people that, I work with and the people that are part of my community, something, a gift of something of use, right? I'm always trying to make mental health and, wellness accessible to people, whatever. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to create kind of like a mental health check-in, a cute sheet that you could print out and have in your house and all this stuff. And the first step of that mental health check-in is, what am I feeling right now? And the fact that we have to really train ourselves and teach people to just take a minute. I usually say close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and notice the sensations in your body is another thing. Is a lot of people don't recognize your feelings are happening in your body, they're not happening in your brain.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, you maybe have rapid thoughts as one of the symptoms of of anxiety, but it's like, right,
Sure.
things happening in your body, and asking yourself, am I hungry? It's called HALT, HALT. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or thirsty? Sometimes we're so disconnected, we don't even know that we need a glass of water, or that we're hungry, or that we haven't slept enough, right?
Yes.
And saying to yourself, ask yourself, what do I need right now? See, drink your water. What do I need right now?
You
And some
inspired me.
people don't even know. What'd you say? It's what?
I said
Vodka.
you inspired me, I said.
I inspired you, right?
And yes,
What
it is vodka. No, I'm just
Yes.
kidding. No.
No, right? But asking yourself, what do I need right now? And sometimes, people feel like, I don't even know. But it's like, well, you have to practice that. It's a relationship with yourself of what do you need right now? And then making that commitment to do that thing for yourself that day. I mean, if it's, oh, I'm hungry, you could get up in that moment and eat something. I
Yeah.
would recommend that usually. You don't want to put that off. If you're thirsty, just get up and, drink some water. You can go back to whatever it is that you're working on. But I do think that a lot of us, right? Well, most of us, right? Our culture is centered around consumerism, and that's why we do the still worthy, because it's around hustling and busy and busy and busy. But it's all really about distraction
That's right.
and distracting yourself from yourself. So this is now that so many of the distractions have been pulled away, we can't go to a store, go to a movie, see friends, go to the bar, shop, have sex with random people, whatever you do to check out, it's not as easily available to you right now. So
Yep.
yeah, people are having to sit with their stuff. And I think that's why there's been such an increase in conversations around mental health, which we're already starting. I'm busier than ever, more people seeking mental health services, people seeking support, people seeking community groups and all that type of stuff. Yeah, because it's like it's all coming to the surface. We're no longer anesthetized.
That's
We've also
right.
seen alcohol though, and drug use increase, because when you have to start sitting with your stuff, it's not like anybody, if nobody taught you how to do that, then you are likely to try to find ways to escape still. So,
Yeah.
been starting to do what I just shared, that little check-in. If people want it, they can, what do you got? Follow me on Instagram. I'll post it, later this week, so that they can, have this cute little graphic I made to remind you to check in with yourself, and see what you need, and then meet that need to the best of your ability.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people also, because they never really took the time to check in and do work on themselves, also because they never took the time to check in with themselves, but then they also don't know how to cope with it, right? Their coping has been whatever, distracting, working, whatever. I had someone tell me, they're like, I just keep myself busy all the time, all the time. I just keep myself busy. I don't like to sit with my thoughts. And I'm like, that says something. That means you should be sitting with your thoughts. Maybe you should consider doing some meditation. Maybe you should consider checking with yourself. That's your body telling you that you need to do something, right? That's your system telling you, hey, maybe slow down a little bit, maybe check in with yourself. I think one of the hardest thing for me, Bianca, this pandemic has been meditation. Hands down, the hardest thing for me to do.
Hmm.
Really difficult. If I go out for a walk, for like an hour, 2 hour long walk with a mask on and being social distant and all that, I'm
Hmm.
fine with that. But sitting down and meditating
Hmm.
during the pandemic, I don't know why my heart starts racing. I don't understand. I'm like trying to understand why my body and my brain are reacting that way.
Well, I would imagine maybe it's because when you sit in the stillness, there's an underlying anxiety that you're feeling, whether you're aware of it or not, that's allowed to come to the surface. And then that would be a thing that if it's not too overwhelming, maybe you try to breathe through it, do some deep breaths and see what comes up, and see, I often talk about, having a relationship with our emotions and, you know, taking a spirit of curiosity, I like to call it, of like, what's going on there? Like, what are you trying to communicate with me? Like, what's coming up for me right now? And sometimes it doesn't come up right away. Sometimes we have to sit with it for a little while and then, continuing to be open about it. But, one of the things that, we have a tendency to do, it's almost like, so an emotion that's uncomfortable is like getting hit with an arrow, right? So you get hit with an arrow and you're like, oh, anxiety, oh, pain, oh, whatever.
Right.
But then humans, what we like to do is then we like to judge the emotion. So then it's like we get hit with a second arrow that's on top of that arrow because we're judging the emotion that we're having. And so there's this Buddhist technique called attend and befriend. And attending and befriending is when you have an emotion, you sit with the emotion and you go, what if there's an image that goes with it, whatever, and you sit there and you just sort of say no to it and you just notice what happens as you're sort of doing the no. Maybe it's the I shouldn't be feeling like this. Maybe it's based on a situation. They shouldn't have done that. Why is this happening? Blah, blah, blah. All the resistance toward that emotion, and you sit with that and you watch what happens. Then you take a breath, you refresh, and then you go back to whatever the emotion is or the situation is. And one of my favorite things to say is I consent. And you try to say yes to it. You try to allow it and see how that shifts your experience of that emotion. And it's a practice. You're not going to do it one time and be like, maybe you might do it one time and be like, wow. But yeah, it's attending and befriending. And so you notice where the resistance is and you play up that resistance so that you can really see what it does to the emotion. And then you refresh and then you say, I consent to this. Like I allow this. Like, and then you just be with it. And what I often find is then there's a deepening. So in the resistance, it's more of like usually like a frenetic type of energy, maybe anxiety and anger or whatever. And then when you go into the consenting, it's usually more of a sadness or a deeper kind of pain, which, okay, I'm really selling it here, right? But there's something grounding about that. There's something grounding about that. And as we talked about last time, the word motion is in emotion for a reason. Your emotions are meant to be felt and move through you. When you're feeling them, they're moving through you. So if you're resisting them or distracting yourself all the time, it's like, they got to come out some way. They got to come out sideways. You're going to lose it when you're driving on somebody. You're going to start crying hysterically at something that's like the smallest thing. It's like, there, guys. We can't escape ourselves. I mean, we can try, and Americans are incredibly talented at doing that, but like, it doesn't serve us in the long term. And it leads to a lot of physical illnesses too. It manifests.
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Tony Robbins, but I do. I think he's really good at what he does.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And Tony talks about how motion creates emotion. And he goes, that's why he's a big advocate of exercising. He's a big advocate of taking care of your physical physique, because he goes, motion creates emotion. He's like, when you're sitting still and you're slumped down and you're depressed, he goes, that creates a level of emotion. It keeps you trapped. But when you get up and you're like, I'm going to take a walk, right? I'm going to take a 10-minute walk, a 15-minute walk, 1 hour.
It changes. Yeah.
The endorphins start rushing in your body. Your mood begins to change. Whatever you were looking at one way, now all of a sudden you're looking at it with a new set of eyes. Like, so much of it matters. And I think for me also, one of the things is I have a lower back injury, and I've been going to physical therapy all throughout the pandemic, trying to like fix my fucked up lower back, because I was in a car accident. This guy came and T-boned my car, and I've developed like this lower back issue. So every time I would go work out, I'm always like in fear. Oh my God, is my pain going to get triggered? Oh my God, am I going to be in pain all night? And I think on top of everything, that's the last shit you need. It's like, just a fucking basic walk is going to trigger this. Like, this sucks.
No thanks. Yeah.
And I feel really bad for people like, who may already have like physical challenges and stuff like that. And this this pandemic doesn't really help, you know?
No, it's really hard for people to get the care that they need, you
Yeah.
know? A
Yeah.
lot of folks, I did a talk with a woman who's a doula and a midwife, and she was talking about how, a lot of women who are pregnant during this time, families, that are pregnant during this time, are not accessing their regular resources, right? And this is a holistic practitioner. So she's like, acupuncture and all the other things that they would do. It's like people are not doing those things that help them take care of themselves. And, if people struggle from chronic pain, they often have like kind of a team of care providers that help them, whether it's massage or physical therapy, acupuncture, acupressure, all the stuff.
Yep. Yep.
So a lot of people are suffering more than they ever have.
Yep. I mean, even if you want to, if I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, maybe what if I join like an outdoor gym, right? An outdoor gym. But then you're like, yeah, but there are people breathing heavily, even with the masks, right? Even though you're still kind of jeopardizing and taking a risk, right? A pretty big risk. Because these gyms, outside door gyms, are pretty packed because everybody wants to go to the gym. Everybody wants to stay healthy, try to keep the depression at bay. So I think there's like, you're just like you're trying you're like almost in like an abusive relationship, and you feel trapped, and you're just like, I'm trapped.
Yeah, which I was gonna say sounds a lot like, right, you when you're working out anyway, right? And I would say that's an interesting thing to look at because I believe in self-fulfilling prophecies, and so it's like, what would maybe working on that fear, and maybe that's something that you could do some processing on, if maybe when you hurt your back, of like, man, every time I work out, I'm in fear that I'm going to injure myself, which is very common of people who have injured themselves exercising. But it's like, man, how does that affect your ongoing exercise and the fact that you're probably tensing your muscles or doing whatever it is? And that's kind of what it's like when people probably go work out now in public spaces. It's like, I want to get into this, but like I could maybe get COVID, or like maybe not. Like there's like this trepidation that we all have now with all the things. And so, usually it's about some sort of a surrender, especially with chronic pain, whether it's emotional or physical, of like, okay, I'm gonna, instead of keep resisting this, I'm gonna kind of like lean into it and be like, back, what do you want to tell me? What are you here for? You are here for a reason. What do you want me to know?
Yep, exactly. I don't know if you read this article recently, and it really broke my heart, about this middle school kid who committed suicide because she can't see her friends anymore, and she just didn't know how to cope with the depression, and took her own life, and the parents found her dead body in her room.
Oh my God, that's so sad. I did not hear that.
And it just broke my heart. And I was looking at that and I was like, wow, man, you look at something like that. Then you look at, after 262 days, our government leaders came up with a $600 one-time check for families that can't put food on the table, that can't pay rent, they can't pay their bills.
Yeah, not going to happen.
Where do you turn for relief? You can't work. You can't really go out. Where do you go? Like, what do you do?
Okay, first of all, if we're talking about suicide, I always like to tell people there's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I should honestly have this number memorized at this point. You can Google it, National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Maybe you can check it out really quick for them, just because I can't do two things at once. I'm on my phone. I'm going to go off. If I look it up, if you are ever having thoughts of wanting to take your life, one, let's normalize that. Way more people have that than we talk about, but it is something serious, and you deserve to get help and have support. And so that's a line that you can call. It's anonymous. They're not going to call, do anything. They're just going to be there for you to talk. You can also text with them. Did you get the number? No? Okay. I was going to say, all right, well, maybe we can put up, but just look up the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, folks, if anybody is out there struggling. And yeah, I mean, if you're having those thoughts, that to me is indicative of a pretty, a serious mental health issue. And it's like, you got to get professional help, and not from a psychic and not from an energy worker. Sorry, those people are very helpful, but like, you got to go to a licensed clinician, psychiatrist, psychologist. Don't go to your primary care physician only. You can go to them as part of the treatment. But usually, you know, I recommend, you know, if you're desperate, you need to like get in and talk to somebody and maybe they can help you, you know, I don't know, cut a line. But there's a lot of resources out there right now, like the BetterHelp app and things that you can use with telehealth right now so that it is more accessible to you. People offering sliding scales, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, right. Yeah. Suicide happens when we feel helpless and we feel hopeless. And what's going on in the world right now and the uncertainty is amplifying that for a lot of people. And so if this stuff's coming up for you, it's like, get help. Go, go, go.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, another thing that I've been hearing a lot is people saying, well, I lost my health insurance because I lost my job,
Yep.
or I don't qualify for Medi-Cal, or I try to get, Obamacare and I don't qualify for that, or I don't have money. So I feel like there are like I've had at least two people reach out to me about that, and they're like, "Hey, can you guide me? Like, where can I go?" And I'm like, "Well, I gave them some of the resources that you provided me for EMDR therapy because these people have suffered immense amounts of trauma." But I wanted to actually briefly talk to you about EMDR, and I think we touched upon it last time, but I would love to talk a little bit more about what EMDR therapy is and who is it really meant for.
Yes, he says. Okay, but then after that, I have to go because I have to go do an EMDR session with a client.
Oh, yay. Okay, all right. Sounds fantastic. Let's do it.
Okay, so real in a nutshell, and you can look this up online. You can Google EMDR. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a very specialized type of therapy that was developed to help people with trauma. And trauma can be big T traumas or little T traumas. Basically, what that means is trauma is defined as being having an experience where you thought your life or well-being was at risk, or you witness that happen to somebody else. It could be medical trauma, it could be sexual abuse, it could be physical abuse, it could be it could be being in war, it could be all sorts of things. But a lot of us have little T traumas, which is basically just things that really, really impacted our sense of ourselves, our sense of safety in the world. So, EMDR is appropriate for people. I often find that it's appropriate for people who I have found people who have done some therapy already, who've done either talk therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, and they are they have a fair amount of coping tools to deal with, just sort of whatever the emotional triggers are and the things that are going on with them. And they're ready to dive deeper because you really can't do EMDR unless you're stabilized. And that means that you're able to regulate your emotions and you're not having, either bouts of major depressive disorder, or if you have bipolar disorder, you're not having, you're not in the midst of a hypomanic or manic episode. You're not so anxious that you are having panic attacks, that type of stuff. Now, some clinicians will say, yes, the treatment that goes on before, like I do a lot of treatment with people to stabilize them before we do EMDR therapy, and they can do that with me, right? So if you're like, I want to do EMDR, you're going to go to a trained clinician and they're going to assess if and when you're ready to do the reprocessing. And many people would say, yeah, all that work you do ahead of time is still EMDR because it's all part of that one intervention, that one treatment. So if anybody's listening to this, I don't want you to be like, well, I've never been to therapy before, I guess I can't do EMDR yet. It's like a trained clinician will help you know that. But I'm just kind of letting people know that so they don't sort of think it's a magic bullet, because it's very, very intense work when you get into the reprocessing part of traumatic experiences. And I don't like to say you relive them because you never relive a traumatic incident. You might think you're reliving it, but that just sort of continues to create the fear around it, right? You're going to go back and revisit it and you're going to reprocess it. And that's going to be very uncomfortable. So we don't have you do that part of the treatment unless you are able to sort of be able to sit with that. And that doesn't mean it's not hard, and people don't dissociate and people don't cry and people have to go back to it and take breaks and all that type of stuff. But there is a level of kind of coping that needs to be able, that the client needs to be able to do. I think it's amazing for everyone. Honestly, I do it with people with all different types of situations, and it's literally magic. I've never seen anything that powerful in my entire life. I really haven't. The training is very expensive and it's very extensive for a clinician. And my hope is that, people who are the underserved population are also getting access to therapists who do this. I work with Immigrants Rising, a nonprofit organization that supports undocumented youth, and I provide therapy to them for free so that they have somebody who's experienced, in getting that type of work. So my hope is that more and more people are doing that type of stuff.
That sounds so wonderful. Like one of the resources you provided me was EMDRIA.com.
EMDRIA.com. That is like that's like the official EMDR website. That's a great place to go. There's videos, right? And there's, tons of information.
Great resource. Yeah, that's a great resource. I love it. Yeah. Thanks to you, now I have an EMDR therapist too.
Which makes me so happy.
Yay! I'm so excited.
My friend, I've got to go. I got to go do a session. But
All right.
I'm so glad we had this talk.
Thank you very much. So where can we follow you real quick? And you do Instagram live sessions. So tell people.
My friends, every Thursday at 3:00 Pacific Standard Time on Instagram, I go live and I answer mental health questions. I get questions from all over the world. You can DM them or you can ask them live, whatever you want to know. There's nothing off limits. And then I'm at You Are Complete. It's fully spelt out on Instagram, on Facebook. And that's my website, youarecomplete.com. I do individual therapy. I have an amazing course that we're doing again called Foundations of Well-Being. All the things. And everybody, I wish you a happy, safe holiday. And Mona, big kisses. I love your face.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Okay, bye.
Bye. That was a short and sweet session, but totally worth it. And again, you guys, if you do want to check out, EMDR therapy, go to emdria.com, which is EMDRIA.com. And God forbid, if you are not feeling good and you feel kind of trapped and you have depression and suicidal thoughts, please go to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is the number is available on screen. Please do call them. Please find help. There are tons of resources where you can reach out to people who can help you, professional folks who can help you, who are there to listen to you. I know this is a short session, but I have been on Zoom calls all day and my brain is pretty fried. And I still have 2 more Zoom calls to go after this. So I do want to thank you guys very much for taking the time for this the short yet very informative episode to be a part of this. Malta, Montreal, thank you for tuning in. The dude, thank you for tuning in. Oh, why don't we include some of the comments here? They're having a political discussion. It's interesting. Biden will be good with diplomatic language. That's about it. The dude said, would you consider Biden an American Trudeau? No, because Trudeau's hot. Then the dude said, I didn't think about the immigrant population in the U.S. How the hell do they survive without the meager assistance from the government? That's precisely. How do they survive? And now during the pandemic, it's just, if you're an American, a citizen, you're struggling. How, if you are someone who's undocumented and, how are you surviving? It's a lot, man. It's definitely a lot going on. The dude said, it's strange that us, so Australia and Canada, have such a rigid support system available to help. American cousins are in a bad way. Yeah, because our leaders are greedy. They really are pretty selfish, and it is very much about filling up their own pockets, and they could care less. And quite frankly, that applies to both Democrats and Republicans, because Nancy Pelosi, who has been, who is respectable and who's done a lot of good stuff, came out and for the longest time she's been talking about, hey, $600 or $1,200 is not enough. It's not enough. And now she finally came out and she was like, $600 should be enough for American families to support and get by. Wow. $600 a week? Maybe. $600 one time? No fucking way. That's not even a rent. That's not even half a rent for most people. It really is sad. And this is why I wanted to bring on a therapist. And this is why I wanted to talk about coping mechanisms and, coping ways. And again, if you are feeling suicidal, please do check out the national hotline and the suicide prevention hotline. It's always there. You can go to EMDRIA, and there are resources to get help. You guys, this has been a nice chat. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't followed me on my YouTube channel, please do. I have a lot of really great content on there. My Minority Reports podcast and digital series has interviews with the likes of Margaret Cho and Trey Crowder and my goodness, Congresswoman Katie Hill, and the list goes on and on. So you can definitely go subscribe to my channel, watch those interviews while you're cleaning the house. Just play all list. Just watch the whole thing. If you like what you see, if you want to share it with your friends, you want to share it on your social media, tag me. It would mean the world to me. You guys, I will see you tomorrow, 6:15 Pacific. Have a good night. Stay safe out there. Please wear your masks.